Hello there, folks. I recently bought this pen on eBay, and having this now entered into my collection or my amassment, I decided I would look at the other Skyline pens I have that are similarly covered in gold metal. And I believe these are the four versions that they made. The solid gold gift of a lifetime, the most common one that has the horizontal latitudinal stripes, chasing pattern, the longitudinal stripes that are spaced further apart, and then the most decorative one, the one with the little chevron, or I like to call it wheat pattern. So let's say I have 4 pens. Well, I do have 4. Actually, I have more of the most common variety, and I think I might even have one more of this one. Who knows? But when I get a new pen, and I got this one in the mail and got it all inked up, I, like many others of you collectors out there, look at all the other pens, look at its brethren, its cousins, its brothers and sisters, and you sort of have a new appreciation. You look at your collection again and say, oh, isn't this nice, or oh, isn't this much nicer than the other one I have, or whatever. So anyway, I did that. I looked at these pens, and what I did was, in addition to looking at them, I decided I would fill them up with ink and try them out. And in some cases, I left the nib where it originally was, like this one. And in the other cases, I put nibs that fit the pen. Now, what I mean by that is, sometimes in my little head, I think a short, stubby pen should have a stub nib. A long, slender pen should have a long, slender, flexible nib. A nib that I imagine is owned by an accountant should have an accountant nib, or rather, the pen that an accountant would buy might be a pen that has a certain quality to it. Now, some of you might be accountants out there, and I don't want to insult you by telling you what I imagine you might be carrying in your pocket. There's a certain matter-of-factness to the art of accounting, I think, that as tax time nears, I'm thinking about how clever they have to be these days in order to make it work. But anyway, so this is what I did. I'll tell you what I did with these. I'll leave the accountant nib for another story. This one is the pen that had the most damage to it. It has this big gash here, this big dent there. This reminds me sort of the picture of the Olympic after it ran into the HMS Hawk, and has this big gash in it. And so there's this big dent from some collision it had with another pen, or maybe an Edsel car crash that survived that. So what I've done with this pen is I've put a really butch, sort of springy nib that seems to fit it. You know, another nib that might have been good with this would be a nib that's very rigid, just because, you know, this survived it, and a rigid nib could survive anything. But I put a typical Skyline, juicy, wet, flexible nib in this pen to match sort of the abuse. I can give this nib, I can apply abuse to this nib in the same way that abuse was applied to the barrel of this pen. And I even love the tarnishing of it. Okay, I'm one of those kind of guys that you can't quite figure out. But if this pen were all shiny, it wouldn't look as nice as the one that has the patina. So I'm leaving the patina here. So that's that one. Now let's take a look at the common one, most common one here. What nib did I give this one? Yes. This nib is slightly italic, and why does that nib belong in here? This nib I can even press down going uphill with it. It's very smooth, it's very reliable. It has a, of all the pens here, this is the one that I could hand to someone that has never used a fountain pen before, and I would be 99.9% sure that they wouldn't fuck it up. Because it can take abuse in a way that this one maybe couldn't. But there's something about the italicness, the thin side strokes on this pen that remind me of the thin side strokes on this. So that's why that nib belongs here. The most delicate nib is the one that came with this one. Actually, no, this isn't quite the most delicate. This one is very fine and somewhat flexible. Well, as you can see, it's flexible. Zoom in here. It's sort of nice and springy, so it can allow me to do this very beautiful decorative calligraphic work. So that's a good pen nib for this decorative, pretty pen. Finally, it's the gift of a lifetime. Now these pens, the solid gold version, smooth. They were always smooth, I think. I don't know that any of them had engraving. I love the simplicity of it. This shows the silhouette of this pen more than any other variety. Even the solid plastic ones had a gold trim or a gold little band on it there, which confuses the silhouette. This is the sort of the one that works best at describing the shape. And this nib, which I haven't used this pen in years and years and years, and I just put a sack in it about 10 minutes ago. And it has a nib that I put in it years and years and years ago, or that it came with in 1940, something or other. So it's a nice springy nib. It's very similar to the nib that was in the fancy pen. And I'm not sure what kind of nib this one belongs in this pen. These pens were sold and marketed as the gift of a lifetime. So the gift was part of the title of this pen, and it seems like a pen that you would give as a gift might have a nib that's a little bit more standardized than this one. This requires a little bit of a brain and a heart to use. You can't just, I would never give this pen to a complete stranger. So in a sense, maybe that the nib that was in the other one belongs in here, because it could be one that could be given as a gift to anyone and they wouldn't screw it up. But this is the odd man out. This is the pen that has the nib that doesn't quite match it. And these, of course, have nothing to do with the actual manufacturer of the pen, or their desires. It's just my way of making a collection of pens make sense to me. If I'm going to have 4 pens that are more or less identical, like these, I'm going to put 4 nibs that are different or that match the idea of them in a way that makes sense to me. I think these two, well, which are the two? I can't see. These two nibs are very similar, so maybe one of these is going to have to change. I think the solid gold one, maybe I'll have to put that nib in here and find a new nib for this one. Though I really like how this one sort of makes you want to draw those horizontal lines. I'm confused. I guess that's obvious. Ta-da!